takings.
The presence of Alan's black hair lying on top of Deborah's dead body would be much harder for anyone to explain away.
The odor of this single black hair is likely connected to her killing. When that hair dropped on her arm, she was likely already dead.
On August 4th, 2016, exactly 39 years after Deborah was killed, Alan Bregman is arrested and charged with Deborah Pantola Clark's murder.
After all these years, it's a very emotional thing to face a trial about someone you lost so long ago.
It's going to be a tough one, because it was all circumstantial.
In court, the prosecution must first take the jurors back to the late 1970s, a decade that some jurors are too young to recall.
Bregman is the only suspect, and circumstantial evidence points directly at him. Why wasn't he charged back then?
It all comes down to DNA forensic evidence that is going to connect a single black hair collected from Deborah's body to Alan Bregman.
Prosecutors said that since Deborah was in her pajamas and lying on her bed, she was comfortable being with whoever killed her.
The single black hair was enough proof to show you that Alan Bregman was in fact in that bedroom that day.
Because if his story was he was hardly in the hair and then apparently knew her, how did a piece of his hair get on her dead body?
Bregman's defense lawyer, Richard White, says the presence of the lone black hair proves nothing.
White argues that the location of where the hair was found is circumstantial, because Bregman was often in Deborah's townhome.
The prosecution has to be able to argue in court that the black hair kept as evidence was actually found on Deborah's arm 40 years ago. Thomas Guilfoyle is put on the stand.
They had a photograph of somebody pointing to Debbie's dead arm where the hair was found.
The hand in the photo was wearing a distinctive Rolex watch.
They, the prosecutor, Becky DeNaglio, made a point of it in front of the jury. She said, "Do you still have that watch?" And I raised my hand and said, "Yes, I do."
On Friday, April 12, 2019, after a 2-week trial, the jury returns with their verdict.
At age 75, Alan Bregman is found guilty of second-degree murder with a firearm. Judge David J. Tunis sentences him to life in prison.
At the time, it was the oldest cold case ever resolved in Miami-Dade County.
Had it not been for that one stray black hair and Thomas Guilfoyle's persistence, Alan Bregman would never have been brought to justice.
I'm lying there crying, and I'm like, why don't I hate this person? This person killed my sister. But now, I'm going to watch somebody lose their life. Not physically, but it's all over. He's lost his life as he knew it. And to me, that's very sad.
Thanks to the resolve of the Miami-Dade County Police, the senseless and violent murder of Deborah Clark that for decades left her killer free until Alan Bregman was finally caught.
Since I know y'all over this, well, I'm about to start coming to y'all.
Yes, sir.
I've been cutting my own damn hair.
As a young man, I always I was with you. Some really weird things up.
Elkridge, Maryland is a quiet suburb in Howard County. A bedroom community 10 miles southwest of Baltimore. Kathleen Goulden lives in Elkridge and works at a popular nightclub in nearby Baltimore's trendy downtown brokerage complex. Kathleen
found partially closed, and Grease suspects she may have been sexually assaulted.
A young woman living alone dies violently. One of the first things you ask yourself is it someone she knows, or is it a complete stranger? Is it premeditated, or is this a random act? Detective Grease searches for the weapon that was used to stab Kathleen, but comes up empty-handed.
Knowing that the door to the apartment had been locked until Mary and Terry Fraser forced it open, he checks the windows. Again, there is no sign of forced entry.
With no murder weapon and not much evidence to go on inside, the police fan out searching for clues.
In the building's parking lot, an officer finds an empty pizza box lying on the ground next to a parked car. There's a name written on it.
You never really know with these things. So police take the empty pizza box into evidence on the off chance it might provide a lead.
It turns out that the parked car belongs to Kathleen. This could be significant. Meanwhile, Detective Grease visits Kathleen's parents, Margaret and Abner Goulden, to offer his condolences. He gives them his assurance the police will do everything they can to find the person who killed their daughter.
This is the hardest job a policeman ever has to perform, telling a parent that their child is dead. But it's essential that investigators learn as much as they can and quickly about Kathleen's life and actions in the days, even the hours before she was killed.
Detective Grease interviews Kathleen's colleagues at the Baltimore nightclub she co-managed. Investigators want to know if the staff have ever seen Kathleen harassed by any of the patrons, or if anyone has taken a particular interest in her.
Pretty young women in the bar business are often bothered by male patrons.
Did Kathleen have any enemies at work? Could a bar patron figured out where she lived?
The day after Kathleen Goulden's body is discovered, Howard County Police Sergeant Angus Park tells the press that Kathleen has been stabbed to death in her apartment on Old Washington Boulevard in Elkridge.
An autopsy being conducted by the state medical examiner's office is expected to determine if Kathleen was sexually assaulted.
Elkridge is paying close attention to Kathleen Goulden's killing. This is already a community on a knife edge because of the string of past unsolved murders. And this has been going on for several years now.
They were very on edge. Elkridge at the time was a pretty working class neighborhood. It was very small townish, and everyone knew everyone else pretty much.
It's the 6th of July, 2 days after the discovery of Kathleen's lifeless body. And the state medical examiner's initial autopsy reveals a stunning discovery. Police initially thought Kathleen Goulden was stabbed to death. Now, 2 days later, they realize she was shot.
Hold on, man. What's up, Trey?
Not today. Not today.
Alright, bro. Great weekend.
Rated T.
What's going on, bro? I went to try to play a little kid
Sometime on the night of July 3rd, 1989, Kathleen Goulden is slain in the bedroom of her ground floor apartment in Elkridge, a suburban community in Howard County, Maryland.
by Elkridge business leaders who know the family.
Imagine what it would be like for the parents in this situation. The sense of frustration, the lack of progress, the feeling of helplessness.
Elkridge residents have certainly not forgotten the 5 murders that came before Kathleen's killing.
So now imagine the fear and apprehension they'd be experiencing. A half year has gone by and Kathleen's killer is still at large. And yet, police are still resistant to the idea that there's a serial killer on the loose in Howard County.
The Howard County police spokesman said, quote, "There's not a phantom killer. We don't see that. There are no maniacs running around the neighborhoods of Elkridge."
At that point, I don't know if the police were so much concerned about any kind of profile as just finding evidence to either confirm their suspicions or dispel them. And once they ran out of investigative leads, they just really didn't have anything other than he remained a suspect.
While police wait for forensic test results to come back from the FBI, Detective Breeze tries to connect Clark to the earlier unsolved murder cases.
For years, Vernon Clark supplemented his rendering plant wages by doing odd jobs around the town for elderly folks.
It turns out he did gardening work for Evelyn Dietrich. And for a while, he was a handyman for Dolly Davis.
Bingo. Rated T.
Okay, Olga, let's get this workout in.
Not today?
Not today.
Not today.
Not today. Speaking of which, I was looking at the contracts. Not today.
Nah, not today.
Not today.
Not today, huh?
With Fidelity Active ETFs, the potential is in the name, Active. Active pursues opportunities, explores possibilities, and adapts to shifting markets. Take a more active approach with Fidelity Active ETFs.
Yeah.
23-year-old Kathleen Goulden is murdered without explanation early in the morning of July 4th, 1989. The cause of death, a single blast to the chest from a 20-gauge shotgun. Her death was the latest in a string of unexplained murders in Howard County, Maryland over the past several years. That all changes when a label on a discarded pizza box in Kathleen's parking lot leads police to 34-year-old Vernon Lee Clark. He is now their prime suspect. The lead investigator of the case, Detective Stephen Breeze of the Howard County Police Violent Crimes Unit, sends DNA samples taken from Clark's body to the FBI's lab in Washington for analysis. Six months later, on Tuesday, January 23rd, 1990, Detective Breeze receives the DNA test results.
Clark's DNA does have the same genetic makeup as the semen found on Kathleen's body.
Once you had this profile, once you had the statistical breakdown of 1 in however many it was, I think it was in the billions, to exclude everybody else except for Mark.
On Friday morning, January 26, 1990, while stalking in a convenience store on his way to work, Clark is arrested without incident. Clark is charged with first-degree murder, assault, and breaking and entering the slaying of Kathleen Goulden.
Clark is in custody, he becomes less cooperative. He refuses to sign documents during an initial appearance before a district court commissioner, and is held without bail in the Howard County Detention Center to await trial.
Detective Greaves telephones Kathleen's mother to tell her the positive news. An arrest has finally been made in connection with her daughter's death. Days later, the family announced they plan to return donations they've received for their reward fund.
Detective Greaves strongly suspects Clark is responsible for several prior murders in Howard County.
Within a week of Clark's January 26th arrest, county and state police reopened the files on 2 of the cold cases.
Vernon Clark was interviewed by police at the time of Dolly Davis's death, but he wasn't considered suspect at that time. And back then, they couldn't use his DNA to link him forensically to the case.
Clark did gardening work for Evelyn Dietrich, and he was a handyman for Dolly Davis.
He worked off and on for the Faulkner's poultry feed and sanitation company. He did odd job work for Dolly Davis and Evelyn Dietrich. He may have recognized Iva Myrtle Watson's vulnerability when he was at the Faulkners, who lived just down the road.
Vernon Clark was a suspect in pretty much all of these murders based on MO. They were secluded areas, they were elderly people, there were evidence that he had been stalking them for a while.
He found ways to draw them out of their rural homes in the evening.
He would unscrew light bulbs outside their houses, he would cut their phone lines, and it was a very planned, deliberate method to try to get them out of the house. He did that in both Dolly Davis and Iva Watson. So Dolly Davis's case had some DNA left over. She had been sexually assaulted, and there was some biological material left over.
Locked up in the Howard County Detention Center, Vernon Clark gives an interview to the press.
He's forthcoming about his drug use, telling a reporter that on the night Kathleen died, he was on a heavy drug binge and in no condition to point a gun.
He also claims that if there was ever any trouble in town, the police always blamed him.
Clark says, "I've got trouble with reading and writing and I'm black. Put that all together and I'm the solution to the cops' frustration."
He also makes a point of saying that he hates guns and was always afraid of the gun at the plant where he works.
Vernon Clark's employer vouches for his character.
Carol Braun tells the Howard County Sun reporter that Vernon never ever wanted to touch that gun. He was very afraid of using it and always ran the other way when he handled it.
By now, Clark is in more trouble than his former boss can help him with.
The charges against Clark have expanded. In addition to a charge of first-degree murder for killing Kathleen, he's also charged with assault with intent to rape, a weapons violation, and perverted practices.
Vernon Clark's trial for charges related to the July 1989 murder of Kathleen Golden commences on April 2nd, 1991.
Clark pleads not guilty. He's represented by Barbara Craner, a public defender for nearby Carroll County.
The lab tests performed by the FBI showed that the pellets found in Kathleen Golden's body matched the pellets seized by police at the rendering plant where Vernon Clark works.
The state will be arguing that Clark shot Miss Golding through her bedroom window, using the 20-gauge shotgun he took from the rendering plant. And then sexually assaulted her as she lay dying on the floor.
In addition to police witnesses, friends and co-workers of Kathleen are called to testify.
The court hears testimony from people who say they saw Clark hanging around Kathleen's apartment building.
In Clark's defense, Pete Cavey, the manager of Ron's rendering plant, testifies that Clark is a good worker and has always refused to go near the shotgun at the plant, out of fear for the weapon.
All right, lady.
On April 17th, Clark is convicted by a county jury of first-degree murder, assault with intent to rape, perverted practices, and a weapons violation. But what about the other cold case murder victims
So
that
you
Clark
can
is
hit that
suspected
highway
of
and
killing?
go home.
You know it.
It looked like it's
Will
been
justice
cold and
ever be
rain.
served for them?
Oh, yeah.
I was finna hit the highway and go towards the city, but I guess not.
If I was back at the beginning, I would choose SNHU all over again. If you're on the fence about getting your
You gonna go down there and do it?
SNHU,
You know, that's where all my people's at.
SNHU
We was
have
going to
this
Frosty
thing
Beach to
that
get drunk,
really helped me
get high
understand what I
as
can
hell.
accomplish.
Sit at my sister's house. But if it's pretty rain, I know I don't want to drive back no 255 in the dark.
simple steps, and it can change your life.
Messed up. You know what I'm saying? So,
Studio back there, too.
I might still do the same thing, but at the crib.
I didn't even know. I did, too.
Not today.
Yep, do the same thing, but just do it at home.
It sounds good today.
I know.
That's what you just got from the stuff. That's what I just asked her to get you. Fish and chicken.
Where you get your fish from? Sam?
Vernon Clark is on trial for the murder of 23-year-old Kathleen Patricia Gould.
Let me tell y'all the best fish. If y'all want some fish, and y'all ain't gotta do no make a phone call. Nuts, right there.
DNA evidence has connected him.
Man, when and they fry it for you in the whole nine. When I tell you they got the big, if I do fish, that's 9 times out of 10 what I do. If I ain't got to fry it or nothing, I just call in since I'm finna buy it. And they fry it just right. Yes, they fish is fire there.
Assault with intent to rape, perverted practices.
I usually have to tell them to fry it hard, but they got the best fish.
Sentencing.
Howard County Circuit Judge Raymond J. Kane Jr. sets the date, August 15th. But a curious thing happens.
On August 15th, both the judge and defense attorney Ross Greenberg received an anonymous handwritten letter insisting on Clark's
On the
innocence.
side.
Like,
The
high
writer
school or
of the letter
college.
claims to be a witness with knowledge of Kathleen's murder.
The writer claims Kathleen's actual killer is
You want to
6
see
feet
Kirk
tall,
So you
Franklin?
don't
laying
like
around skin.
Oh, yeah, you did say that. That's why I be watching. I don't even watch the NFL. That shit,
The
like high school football ass.
Says
In
they
St.
don't
Louis,
want to
yeah, red-handed, Yolanda
but they're reluctant to
Adams.
appear in court for fear of danger
Oh,
to
they'll be there.
living life.
Who you going with?
My daughter.
That's gonna be
The
gone.
judge
All of them
postponed
smokes.
the
Man,
sentencing
you
until
don't know
August
nothing about no
10th.
Kurt Franklin.
That's why that ain't
I'm
the
one
one
of
going.
them.
I knew you was finna say
Based on
but she do. But that ain't the one going.
the court is willing to give the defense an opportunity to
Her
say
ass
something
wanna go see
about
Boots.
Yeah.
Yeah, she ain't trying to know.
Insisting on Clark's innocence. After reviewing
My mirror girl, the baby girl, the one that work at Panera.
After a 2-month
You
delay,
fine?
Vernon Clark is finally sentenced. Life
Yeah, her ass trying to go see nobody
to
but
be
some
served at the Maryland Department of Corrections
Good
Annex in
dirt.
Jessup.
Sexy red, that's what her ass wanna go.
Years go by. All the while, Howard and Baltimore County Police work on cold case murders they reopened after obtaining Vernon Clark's DNA. Finally, 10 years after Kathleen's murder, the August 5th, 1999, police end up charging Vernon Clark with killing both Della Davis and Evelyn Deacon.
If you have that compelling evidence, it most likely will be good enough to take it to trial. It will probably be some sort of DNA, some sort of forensic evidence, which is always good. Some of the cases didn't have that biological material. Others may have had some at some point, but it was degraded to the point where nothing could be found.
In February 2001, Clark pleads guilty to first-degree murder in the stabbing death of Della Davis.
Our goal was always to try to get him to plea. He was already serving a life sentence, so we were seeking simply another life sentence, and in getting him to admit responsibility and hold him accountable for Della Davis's murder.
Clark remains the lone suspect in the remaining Howard County cold case murders.
It's April 2015.
Clark was serving 3 life sentences in the Roxbury Correctional Institute in Hagerstown, Maryland, for the murders of Kathleen Goulden, Rebecca Davis, and Evelyn Dietrich. When at the age of 59, he is indicted by a Howard County grand jury in the murder of Ida Myrtle Watson. It's been 30 years since her death.
In the Ida Watson case, I distinctly remember the family being relieved that they now had an answer as to what happened. It wasn't a great answer.
Clark gets a 4th life sentence for Ida Watson's murder, but he has yet to be tied forensically to the Faulkner killings.
Vernon Clark was a young man when he began committing these incredibly violent crimes. He would have only been 23 when he killed Carville and Sarah Faulkner in 1979.
You wonder what had happened in his life. By that point, for
Murder spree. Perhaps it was his success that emboldened him to keep on killing. Until a pizza box connected Vernon Clark to a vicious crime, and he was finally caught.
If it's always been a dream to go to Paris, why stay in a hotel on the touristy side of Paris? Get an Airbnb on the Paris-y side of Paris.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Bubble back and heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall.
Oh man, y'all see Diddy get arrested?
Yeah.
Boy, Facebook is off the charts with that shit. TikTok, oh, they got me out. Man. Y'all see him put his face on Nino Brown's face? Oh, he said he taking everybody.
with the comfort of 3 decades worth of happiness.
I did. Not that like, ain't no way. Yes, I get so zooty just to go on there and see what they doing there. Baby, just sit back.
If I go down, everybody
Yeah,
goes down.
oh no. I'm gonna show it to you. Here we go.
This should have been an open case, but it turned out to be anything special. Turns out that Louise Talley's murder.
Watch Jay-Z. Look at Jay-Z face. Look at Cat Williams. He the one took it down.
It will take decades before the 3 killers finally caught.
Baby, he say this bigger than Nino Brown. I'm taking everybody down. Look at this fool. He said he pleaded the 5th. Look at this motherfucker. Look at Phil. I said, man, baby, they say he had 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Everybody on there like, it take you 5 years to go through 1 bottle. You had 1,000?
16 years worth of footage.
Boy, for real?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that part.
16 years worth of video footage.
From his house? What was he thinking? He knew they was coming.
He was blackmailing. So he would be getting all the celebrities at his parties and he'd be letting them get high and drunk. And he'd have like male prostitutes there and he'd catch them on video doing something they shouldn't be doing. He was just blackmailing. They say he got Cuba Gooding Jr. on video.
Heard. They said, wait a minute, they got on there now, Beyonce and Jay-Z, they say they next. They say they next.
I think Jay-Z might be south, but I don't know.
I don't know now. Oh, wait a minute, they say they got LeBron James.
was an uncertain
Oh,
time.
they say they got it's a whole list. They got LeBron James, TD Jakes, Chris Brown. Oh man.
He a wild dog.
In that time,
Whatever it
she
is,
might
I
have
can't
stayed
wait
that
to
way.
see it because he
In
done.
walks
But you know,
Hayward
he
Town,
posted
Virginia,
videos,
a
he
landscape
did it.
gardener, and his
They wouldn't even take it.
heart.
Them motherfuckers say, you don't try to get somebody $50 million and they denied you.
He's 36 and she's 32. It's the first match for both of them. Reverend O'Connell Milford resides. The tally settled down near where Hayward grew up. Nicetown. The happy couple buys a home together at 3959 Nice Street, no less. Nicetown is on the north side of Philadelphia. It's a blended mix of low-income and working-class families.
There are multi-generational row houses and high rates of unemployment, which contributes to petty crime in the area.
But still, it's a place to call home. And the happy couple love being together here. They are loyal Christians, active in their local church.
Their door is always open for
Mason
visitors.
probably.
Louise just loves to garden. Her yard becomes the envy of the block.
Louise and Hayward built
You can go in there.
life in Nicetown. Sure, they started a bit late to get married, but perhaps the wait will make their life together even sweeter.
When Hayward Talley dies in 1987, Louise is left alone with a choice to make.
Her neighbors wonder, will a longtime Nicetown resident move out now that her husband is gone?
Louise decides to stay in the nice house on Nice Street that she shared happily with Hayward for 3 decades. Louise is a proud, independent woman. Even as a senior citizen in her 70s, she takes care of herself. She keeps an immaculately clean house, works in her garden, even washes her own car.
More than 3 years after Hayward dies, Louise is fully settled into her simple widow's life.
Independence can come at a price. It isn't hard to figure out that Louise lives alone in that old house.
She had recently had a loss in her life, so was quite a vulnerable individual in the community.
October 18, 1990.
Evidence suggests smoke and fear points strongly towards robbery.
A closer examination of Louise Talley's body provides important clues.
Lisa's house clothes crumpled underneath her body. When the rope gets carefully unraveled, bingo, the murder weapon.
A 12-inch metal knife with an 8-inch blade, covered in blood. This gets bagged and
All right,
tagged.
sure.
It's a crucial piece of evidence.
The knife matches other knives found in the kitchen.
So we know the killer didn't show up with a weapon. Instead, they found the knife once they were inside. In Louise's own kitchen downstairs.
Bro, probably like this upcoming week or some shit. My motherfuckers ain't doing nothing. We sure been trying to get in. I did. I sent you that song. I'm gonna send you the one I made with him. Yeah. We put band lab on that bitch and get a mic or something. Like, say that shit.